For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community. Got the privilege and opportunity to support our heroes in their time of need. Will you join us and take action?
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by two veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the MisFitNation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. Welcome back to our Tuesday after dinner show here live on the MisFitNation. It's been a pretty fast-paced week already. Some great football last weekend, some weird games last night. We lost Ducky from NCIS last night. Rest easy, Ducky. And today we had the news that MisFitNation published its first book as a LLC, Out of the Darkness. It's available on all places you can buy books. That's Out of the Darkness. It's out today. So please get out there and buy that book and help the MisFitNation out so we can keep getting more experts and more tools and tricks for our veterans on here, and also share stories of our fellow veterans on the MisFitNation. So tonight we have a great one that will really help our audience, because many of our audience, being veterans or first responders, suffer from many different things in life. A lot of illnesses from service, from action in service and community. And now our guest here is going to provide us with tips and tricks, maybe to help them get out of that health cycle of badness and come into a cycle of goodness. He struggled with chronic illness and began to manage his own condition with diet as a young child. He later learned how to conquer Candida and fungal-related digestive problems that had become systemic in himself, and he did the same with Lyme disease, Babesia, and other co-infections when these started to wreak havoc on his health. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Brad Montagne to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks. I'm really glad for the invite, and I'm excited for what we get to talk about tonight.
That's awesome. It's awesome to have someone to come in and give us a different perspective than what we hear from the guys in the white suits and stethoscopes at the doctor's office. Get someone who's been down the trail and fought the battle and is winning, of course, and have you on here. Now, Brad, we just gave basically a 2-sentence blurb about you to talk a little bit about you. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit more about you from as far back as you want to go to how we got here today.
Really simple. When I was about 5 years old, um, I woke up in the middle of the night with this excruciating gut pain, just doubled over, and it was my first trip into the hospital. I think they said I had inflamed intestines, something along that line. They did some weird things to me, and that opened the door to something that I think I believe that everyone with chronic health issues has the same problem, is that they're never told what's going on. They're never told why it's there. They're given something that just candy coats whatever's going on, gets rid of the symptoms, maybe reduces those for a short period of time, but it become a lifetime issue, and they never know why that's there. I've been led down a road that I've got close to 40 years of postgraduate education in functional medicine. And in that, I hooked up with some of the people that have the tools where you can figure out what these things are and have gone beyond what most of them have been able to do. And we help people with the worst chronic nightmares of illness that are out there just rebuild their lives and give their lives back. And that's just a huge thing for what your audience is. There's always some really simple things that you can do, foundational things that most people don't really know about. Like, listen to your introduction, you guys talk about trying to deal with PTSD. If you understand what goes on to PTSD, it becomes a lot more clear on what you really need to do to help resolve that. First and foremost, your adrenal gets burnt out. And when it gets burnt out, it starts putting out all these anti-inflammatory hormones that change all of your physiology. They start to melt your muscles. It melts your muscles so that it liberates amino acids. Those convert in your liver to make sugar so you can defend your life, and it jacks your blood sugar up. That's a predisposition to diabetes and all that. But it also dysregulates all your hormones because adrenals make all the precursors to your sexual hormones, and they're kind of the center focus of the whole hormonal axis. So the hormones get whacked out. The gut, it gets all messed up so you don't start to absorb your nutrients. And that starts to create a whole bunch of changes in your ability to digest foods. One of the key ones is fats. And when you look at people with PTSD and the chronic stress issues, their fat intake becomes completely imbalanced. Like, you take combat situations, one of the biggest things that causes the inflammatory reactions in the brain that really start to mess with people is because the fats are all messed up. They don't get a proper balance. There's three primary kinds of fats. Animal fats are called omega-9s, and those are hyperinflammatory. Vegetable fats are omega-6. Those can be commonly inflammatory, but not so much. And then you have fish oils and seed oils, omega-3s, that are anti-inflammatory. And when you look at like the diets that they give in combat situations, you never get a proper balance of your omega-3, 6s, and 9s, and it makes the brain become inflamed. It helps dysregulate the adrenal glands even more, and you have this huge upset of an inflammatory brain. Hormones are completely upside down. The digestion is completely a mess. And once the oils quit digesting, you quit digesting your proteins, your minerals. Your minerals are what make everything work. And it's not a huge, really hard fix to address. You start to change a diet so that you can start to increase your omega-3 oils, which this is kind of a hard one. 75% of the omega-3 oils on the shelf are rancid before you buy them. So it's really critical on which ones you buy. If it's
Right.
not refrigerated, it's junk. It's not worth buying. Same thing with probiotics. It has to be refrigerated. And we have on our website, it's healthfullyu.com. We've got links to some stores. The highest quality fish oil you can get in North America is in the Apex store. It's called Omega Co 3. And that is absolutely phenomenal in what it does to help rebuild adrenal glands, to help knock the inflammatory issues that go in the brain, to dysregulate the ability to think, things along that line, and it helps heal the gut up a fair amount. There's other things you can do. Like I was checked out a couple of young kids we started working with a few months back. They got bit by some ticks. They were dirty ticks, and they picked up Lyme disease. Today we checked them out. They're clean, and they got down to a simple foundation, which is a high-grade multivitamin, a fish oil, and a calcium magnesium supplement. Those three things can change somebody's life. And I'm not kidding with that. With all the soil depletion and nutrients and all that, you can't get those nutrients that you need out of your food. So a high quality multivitamin, a really good fish oil, and a high quality calcium can really turn somebody's world around so they can start to function pretty well. And you build foundations from there.
And like I told you in our email back and forth, and of course in the pre-show, just a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with alpha gal, which also comes from a tick bite, a different dirt than the tick, I guess, and makes you allergic to all red meats or anything with hoofs and feet. So that took all that off the palate as well.
Well, it's an interesting thing with alpha gal. I believe the research for that came out of Russia. There's a team of researchers that wanted to put a paper together on cancer, and they couldn't find anything, what they were doing, why they were trying to find something. Two of the researchers got bit by ticks. They got Lyme disease, and they started experimenting around with Lyme disease, and they took some meat extract. They stuck it on a pin and they poked it on their arm, and that swelled up, gave a rash type of reaction, and they came up with this alpha gal uh, allergy out of that. Now, alpha gal is a specific sugar that's in meats, but there's not one alpha gal test that tests the sugar. They're all meat extracts, and that was pretty popular quite a few years back. And its popularity is decreased quite a bit. But generally, whenever somebody gets bit by a tick, they're full of Candida if they're going to get any kind of sickness whatsoever, and that means that their gut's a mess. It leaks like a sieve. It's like a colander. Anything that goes through there is going to create all kinds of different issues. And there's the biggest issue with meat proteins isn't the protein itself, it's the food that the meat fed off of. And if it's from a feedlot feeding corn, it's toxic. Corn is full of all kinds of herbicides and pesticides. It's just really toxic. And the reaction to the alpha gal is probably from corn. It's never been from the sugar. It's never been tested from that. But people that don't keep up with what's going on with it, they'll still come up with that diagnosis every once in a while.
That's not anything. My VA doctor did not say anything like that at all to me. I guess he read off his script of what alpha gal says to them, and that's what he went with. Same thing with my buddy at work. He got the same exact diagnosis from a separate doctor, of course. But basically, within months of each other. His is a little less severe than mine is, but both got the same issues, and maybe we'll have to look into other areas now.
Yeah, it's something I can figure that out in probably whether it's really alpha gal or not in seconds. But what's really going on, uh, you can just basically bet that the gut's a mess. There's all kinds of food intolerances, and the real issue, since it's a meat extract, it's not the sugar in the meat that the alpha gal talks about. All commercial meats are fed in a feedlot on corn. Corn is sprayed with atrazine. Atrazine is a pre-emergent herbicide that keeps weeds from sprouting up in the cornfields. Uh, Roundup is really bad. A lot of people know about Roundup. Atrazine is at least 10 times worse than Roundup.
Wow.
And what atrazine is so bad, it'll take male frogs, turn them into female frogs that can produce eggs that are fertilizable, turn into tadpoles. It's mutagenic. You give it to adolescent boys, they can't produce testosterone, can't produce sperm, they don't develop into puberty. It dysregulates the hormones in all women. It messes so many pathways in physiology. It's absolutely crazy. Corn, I call it an evil food. And I could just about bet you that meat extract is from a commercial meat full of corn, and people are probably responding to corn, not the sugar in the meat.
Wow. Yeah, I think you're right. In the email, you said you'd blow my mind with it, but you just did that a little bit right there.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing when you actually study. See, we've to do what I do, you got to know what's working, how things work, and how you discover it. In close to 40 years of working in functional medicine, I couldn't count on fill up the fingers on one hand of how many doctors I've met in any profession, any specialty in those close to 40 years that studied physiology like I have from back in college. I still study it on a regular basis.
Got a question from the audience already. Jake, so my family and I raise our own meat, milk, eggs, make butter, and are going to venture to cheese. We also produce many of our own veggies. Do we really need all the extra vitamins and such?
Okay, a real key issue with that. A family we been working with for a while. They bought some farmland in the Midwest in an area that had been commercially farmed for about 20 years. It had been sprayed with, they raise corn, and corn is always rotated with soy. So you're raising corn, you got atrazine, you got Roundup, and you got all kinds of other crazy things in the soil. The Roundup, they found it 10 feet deep in the soil. It doesn't break down, and it's a nightmare. It robs all the minerals out of plants. That's how it kills them, because it kills the immune system. It does the same thing in people. So if you're raising your own meat, milk, and eggs off of old farmland that's been farmed with the typical petrochemical issues that go on with all of the herbicides and pesticides that go on, your meat's toxic. And there's different ways where you need to clean that land up to make it so that those aren't. There's something called hyperaccumulators in plants, or the ones that have root systems that go down. They mine the soil and they'll pull out all the toxic issues that are there. It would really make sense to plant your cropland, if that's the case and it's been commercially farmed, to plant it with hyperaccumulators, harvest all of the toxins out of the soil for at least a year, bale that stuff up, get it off your land, and try and get that soil clean. And then you can do a whole bunch. Do not feed them what the commercial people do. Grass fed, grass finished, you got a chance. They've screwed up the genetics in the cows so bad. The only genetics that you hope got a prayer of getting clean milk out of is Guernseys and Jerseys, the Holsteins that the whole industry runs on. When I was young and moved up to the farm country, it wasn't uncommon to have a Holsteins on the milking line that were close to 20 years old, some 22. Now there's not a 3-year-old cow. There's not a cow over 3. on any milking line in a Holstein farm. They're genetically manipulated, fed, and pushed with hormones so bad they're done at the age of 3.
Jake said, okay, thanks. It has been grazing land for the last 40 or so years.
Awesome. But have they sprayed it with stuff? The huge issue with grazing land is this stuff called Grazon now. Grazon will destroy and make a soil inert where it won't grow any crops or anything else for over 20 years. So knowing the history, that's a huge thing. If it's a clean grazing land, it's been more of an organic farm. Just be careful on what you get. Don't get the commercially driven stock that people typically do. If you're going to do your own milk, Jerseys and Guernseys is the only way to go. They just haven't screwed their genetics up.
He said no spray and thank you.
Awesome.
So he's absorbing everything you're saying, just like the soil.
Yeah. There's some old world docs that say if you're really going to get into health, eventually you're going to get into growing crops and all that. And I'm pretty well studied on soil physiology, plant physiology, molecular physiology, and in the animal kingdom. And so I'm not just throwing guesses out there. It comes from a lot of years of study.
He said, what about adding potash, lime, and iron to the soil?
The number one thing you want to add to soil is calcium. It takes 5,000 pounds of water-soluble elemental calcium per acre to make fertile soil. Now, if you're fertilizing with high cal lime, it's about 30%, 33% calcium in the high calcium lime. So you got to triple that. So that's 45,000 pounds per acre. And then that's released over 3 to 7 years. So triple that again. And you're talking just a crazy amount of calcium. But calcium is what drives everything. Calcium is first. Potash is probably second. Phosphorus would be next out of that, and you can do a whole bunch as far as nitrogen. A lot of people, if you look in other parts of the world, urine is one of the best sources of nitrogen. You have to have ammonia form nitrogen and nitrate form nitrogen. They do different growth phases of that. So if you're on pasture land and you don't want to mess with a ton of amendments, is what they call them, seed in a whole bunch of legumes in there. And what's the climate like and where you're at? You got a lot of snow cover there?
Not really. It's hot and humid where he is as well. He's basically the borderlands of Tennessee and Kentucky.
Okay, because the legume that tends to grow the best in haylands and all that seems to be trefoil. You plant it once and you let that keep the reseed and it'll last forever in your pasture. If you do that with clover, you can't make hay on it because it doesn't, well, in a hot area you'd be able to. And if it's humid and rains much, you can't. And the alfalfa, the roots break if it freezes and thaws quite a bit. The trefoil seems to last the longest, and it makes the most sense to plant it once and not have to go back again. So plant your legumes in there and that'll take care of your nitrogen. So you only got to deal with the other 3.
He said he's been doing 2 to 3 tons per acre and uses old tobacco stalks for nitrogen.
Okay, you can do that, but if you plant enough legumes, you won't need any. And tobacco is one crop that's really, really toxic. The 3 most toxic crops in the world is coffee, tobacco, and cotton. And if you're using any kind of byproduct of tobacco, it's toxic. It's full of all kinds of sprays and all that. You don't want to do that.
Another mind-blowing moment there. Coffee and cotton, most toxic.
Yeah.
We're learning a lot here tonight.
Yeah.
You talked about your book earlier, and on your bio, it talks about the Candida leaky gut, Lyme disease, detoxification. We always hear a lot of doctors now talk about detox, and you see all these commercials on TV. You need to detox this, detox that. What are your thoughts on the detox?
It's a huge thing. We always incorporate that in whatever we do. Almost all the detox products are kind of a joke. They don't really deal with anything. When you look at detox, I was with a bunch of clinicians a little while ago, and that subject came up, and I asked the other clinicians, so what's the first thing you do? Everybody's all over the map. First thing you do is you upregulate elimination. Because if you liberate toxins and you're not eliminating right, you're just going to make yourself a lot sicker, a whole bunch sicker. So bowel habits have to be at least twice a day. Normal is 3 to 5 times a day. That's pretty much regulated by fiber intake. And if you're really toxic, you got to be at least 3 times a day. Bladder habits, males should be at least 5 times a day, women at least 8. So you got to really increase your liquid intake before you do anything else, because you've got to get the elimination up. Otherwise, all you do is recircle your toxins and you make them a whole bunch worse. You got 4 different detox organs. Your liver's 1, your intestinal wall is 2, your colon wall is 3, and there's a bacterial coat in your whole gut called the flora or the microbiota. It's 4. They all work in concert in things, and that has to be really, really healthy as far as that goes. So any type of health issue, the gut's typically a mess. You got to feed it with good multi-fish oil. Calcium is absolutely critical. And I always say calcium, but I mean calcium, magnesium. Huge press on how important magnesium. Magnesium does not work with calcium. Magnesium makes calcium work, period. So you can't ever separate them. They should be 30 to 50% magnesium to calcium ratio. Those would be the first steps. So your multi-fish oil, calcium, magnesium would be huge, and you go from there to heal the gut. It's the hardest thing in the body to fix. You take somebody debilitating Lyme disease where they can't hardly walk from the bedroom to the bathroom. We can typically get people rid of their Lyme disease in 6 to 8 weeks. A lot of the co-infections at the same time, Babesia, depending on what form, of maybe 4 months. But what's left is a Candida and leaky gut, and that takes six months at least to clear that if somebody's really on top of it and knowing what they're doing. It takes some really specific direction because everybody's different and everybody does a whole bunch of things. Food intolerance is a huge part of this, and there's a few food groups that's wise to eliminate. Everything pathological feeds off of sugar, get it out of your diet. All your artificial sweeteners are neurotoxins. They dysregulate your blood sugars and they destroy your gut wall. Do not do those at all. White sugar is the absolute worst of anything. A raw cane sugar you can maybe do. Honey's full of Roundup and all the other toxins from farming. So stevia and xylitol dysregulate everything. They screw your hormones up and all that. So you get rid of sugar, get rid of corn, get rid of meat, wheat, get dairy out of your diet. Add a good multi-fish oil, calcium, magnesium supplement. I think we have some of those on our product page on our website, and those are available through the stores that are on the website. Some of the best ones. 3 years ago, before COVID hit, we had the best supplements you could get in North America. 90% of those are unusable today because the break in the supply chain has changed what they're building all these supplements on of, and it is changing every day. So you can't go to the store and get anything off the shelf.
They used to say go in the stores and stay to the outside, I guess the outside lane, go to the vegetable area, and then I guess towards the egg area, the dairy side. You're staying safe. Stay away from dairy and be cautious what you get in the, I guess, the veggie area.
Yeah, with Bill Gates, he created this new toxic product called Appeal. It becomes a part of fruit and vegetables. It's extremely toxic, dysregulates hormones. creates a huge toxic issue. They don't have to label it. So we just found out that Whole Foods is under the cover. They're introducing in rotations cautiously food that's coated with this appeal stuff, and you've got to ask people in the store for every item to go in the back and see which bin it came out of to know whether it has appeal on it or not. So the outside of the stores, what they're doing to the food supply is criminal, and that's one of the things they're doing.
Wow.
So shopping the outside of the store doesn't work all that well. One tool you can do is you can look up ewg.org. That's ewg.org. They have on there a dirty dozen, clean 15 list that's always changing. You need to know the dirty dozen is the most toxically sprayed crops that you eat and consume. The clean 15 is the crops that commonly aren't sprayed, and somebody has underhandedly paid everybody as far as sweet corn goes, and it's always in the clean 15 list. It's not clean. Is
Wow.
just not clean. But most of their stuff is pretty good, and they have a good list where you can take your cell phone and you can scan the QR code. And last I looked at that, they had over 60,000 products that'll tell you how clean that is. I've heard that Consumer Reports has a little bit more accurate one than ewg.org, and it's not one I've really looked at a whole bunch, but I would doubt if that's the case, because money will corrupt everybody, and it doesn't take much to pay people off, and they lie. Which, by the way, over the world, at least 40% of the research that's printed in the most prestigious journals in the world has got what's called spin on it. That means somebody's paid off to misrepresent the findings of the study. It's been projected that it's over 75% of what's produced in the U.S. and 75% of the time is overt fraud.
Wow. Wow.
Somebody's getting paid to lie to you.
Money is the root of all evil. So there it is.
It's the love of money that's the root. It's not money. Yeah. It's the love of.
Yes. And how you use it, yes.
and it's the corrupt love of, because we can't function without money. And it doesn't matter what the exchange is, we can't function without it. And there's healthy, righteous ways to gain it, and there's really unhealthy ways to gain it too. You gain it in a right way, you use it in a right way, and you understand what money really is. It's really a good tool.
It definitely, well, I've seen it work in great ways and horrible ways in Afghanistan and Iraq. So I've seen both those people at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't it amazing how the world's becoming more black and white?
Yes.
And the light shining on what's right, it's becoming so obvious that people can't deny it.
Right. It's too easy to see now, especially with the advances in technology where you can do something like this right here from nowhere near each other, sit here and talk to each other about a very hot topic, and it can get broadcast around the whole world right now. The world has become so small where information can flow that easily across the world, and you know what's right and what's wrong just by getting online and talking to somebody.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And it's a wonderful thing when you can get online and who you're talking to is being honest. Yes. And I think you can tell that.
Definitely. You can feel passion and genuineness amongst people when they talk to you, or you can see the person who's all hyped up and just yelling or trying to sell you something instead of trying to teach you something.
Right. Right. Which, by the way, do you know what the definition of doctor is?
No, but I'm going for my doctorate now, so this might help me.
It's teacher.
Teacher. Okay.
Yeah. I take that honestly, and I'm pretty serious about that. So it's always been a part of who I am. We always empower people with the truth behind whatever we're talking about. Give them tools. Yeah. Give them tools to live by.
So, Brad, if you could give the audience just maybe 3 things they can do, small things they can start to do to find a healthier life, what would that be?
Um, okay, this is a huge one. I remember, I think it was an admiral that did a graduation speech at a prestigious college, and he started talking about making your bed, how big of a thing that was because you accomplish something right away. My wife and I were in a restore. It's like a salvage store a little while ago, and she shows me a poster on the wall. This guy sitting in a bathtub, and it says, "Cleanliness is the first step in self-respect." And whenever somebody starts to not take care of themselves, it's an outward sign of a disrespect of self. So it starts with something that's really, really basic, is this personal hygiene thing. You just feel better. And it's funny when you look at opposite sexes, the biggest thing that attracts and makes the opposite sex attractive is personal hygiene.
Yep.
That one's huge. It's really cheap, and it's phenomenal what it does just staying clean because you still feel fresh and and things along that line. I just talked about a few things as far as foods go. If you are living in a city and you don't have a huge amount of money to spend to make your liquids clean and drinkable, write this one down. Go get yourself a zero pour through pitcher. It's a gravity fed pitcher. We've been testing people on water supplies for a long time, and zero pitcher always came out on the top. Down the road, independent labs have done research. It cleans water the cleanest of any pour through pitcher. Berkey is a toxic thing. There's a whole bunch of that type of system that are really, really toxic. They're cheap. They're really easy to use. They got a replaceable filter, and they'll take the most toxic things out of your water. So you know the personal hygiene thing, cleaning up your diet, taking just a good foundation of a good multi-fish oil, calcium, and getting a clean water supply. Those things can change your life. There was a guy, I believe it was in India, doctor, worked in a prison. He did all kinds of diagnostics, but he would never had anything therapeutically to give people. All he could give them was water, more water. And he had like a 75% resolution rate in a prison system, in an underfed, under-exercised, third world prison system. And first time I got in a prison system was in Eastern Europe and Russia's Berlin Wall was coming down. And I've got like close to 30 years of prison ministry under my belt. Started over in Eastern Europe and Russia. So I know the difference between one thing or another. If you can take a water supply from a place like that, and that starts to resolve people's health issues, it's bigger than what most people think. And that's the cheap, easy way you can do it.
Outstanding. Great tips right there, Brad. You said make your bed. That's one of our, I guess, our tenets here on the Misfit Nation, to stack victories every day. And I have Adam McRaven's speech right there in next to my bed. It's called "Make Your Bed." Actually, it's name in a book, and it's his whole speech actually. And we call it stacking victories. So you wake up in the morning, getting up is a victory for a lot of people. Making your bed is step 2, your second victory. Brush your teeth, do the hygiene things, and keep stacking victories every day. And the next day, try to beat those victories. So you have those victories to keep stacking each day. So I think if we add some of the tools you just gave us now, that'll add some more victories along the way. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, and in that there's something that's really interesting. I started working with somebody who is really, really in a bad shape mentally and health-wise, and they feel like a failure. And I asked them, so do you know what success is from a healthy standpoint? Do you know what failure really is? And the person didn't know, and I don't think really a lot of people really do know. And most of my background, I got like, I've been in ministry for over 40 years, and my reference is biblically. So it's just my own worldview, and it doesn't mean other people have to have that. But success just means that you keep trying. And when you fall, you get back up, you brush yourself off, and you keep going again. Failure just means you gave up, you quit, you just don't want to try anymore. And all it takes is somebody to stick a hand on their shoulder and go, man, I believe in you. I'm with you. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to help you with a whole bunch of stuff. You can pull people back out of that pit of the despair, so they just take another step and try all over again. Every one of us, we fail a whole bunch trying to learn how to walk, trying to learn how to run. You ever try and watch a 1.5-year-old run downhill? Man, it looks like an accident waiting to happen. You want to run out and go rescue them, but they need to go through that. And we all go through that on bicycles and all that. Life, it doesn't change. Just because we get older doesn't mean that we quit falling.
Exactly.
We just got to learn
to your
get
point
back
earlier,
up.
Doctor equals teacher. You got to keep learning as you grow older as well. We're not judged by how many times we fall. It's like you just said, how many times we get back up is how we're judged. So I'm glad I get up all those times when I was 1, and my daughter got up, and granddaughter now. And watching it's a viral video watching a little kid do that, or even puppies, watching puppies do their first run and tripping over each other. That's a great thing to do as well.
Yeah.
Brad, how can someone get in contact with you? What's the best way to get in contact with you, Brad?
Best way to get in contact me is one of two ways. Our website is healthfullyu, HEALTHFULLY, and the letter U.com. It's not YOU, but the letter U. Or you can just give us a call, and I can chat, and we can see which way we need to direct you. That's 828-683-9332. It's 828-683-9332.
9332.
Yep.
828-683-9332.
Perfect.
Awesome. I can hear and type at the same time now. I'm doing better.
Oh, and something else that they could do, if you go on my website, I've got a free ebook called Healing Lifestyles. That'll give you a whole bunch more tips that are free.
Awesome. So, MisFitNation, I hope you're listening and taking these notes. The number is going across the bottom of the screen now for those of you watching this on YouTube or streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you're watching it. We appreciate you being on here. Those of you on About Face Radio, the number is 828-683-9332. The website is Healthfully. It's HEALTHFULLY, the letter U.com. Dr. Brad, thanks for an awesome chat tonight and really opening our eyes to a lot of things that we've been, I guess, our eyes have been closed to due to lack of knowledge mostly. And you taught us some stuff tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a pleasure being here. And, if you want to talk about some specific sites, reach out. Specific things we could really have a lot of fun, really turning over some rocks about a lot of things that people have misconceptions about.
Awesome. We appreciate that. Have a good night.
Thanks. You too. Appreciate it. Bye.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the MisFit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all of our past episodes and get some of that great MisFit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are MisFit Nation.